Welcome back. Okay, I am absolutely thrilled you're here for another explainer today because we are unpacking a truly fascinating piece of writing. We're taking a really deep dive into the foreword to the Chapter of Wisdom authored by Xuefeng. Now, this text is a highly spiritual, super poetic, and philosophical exploration of what it actually means to truly understand the world around us. It challenges our everyday priorities, It asks us to look much deeper into the nature of human intellect and spiritual growth, and the author uses incredibly vivid imagery to make their case. So together, we're going to map out this journey step by step, straight from the source text, to see if we can totally reframe how we view our own minds. Let's get right into it.
Let's kick things off with a pretty massive foundational question. What is the true difference between a mind full of knowledge and a mind full of wisdom? Now, in our hyper-connected modern world, we tend to use these interchangeably, right? We just kind of assume that reading a lot of articles, endlessly scrolling through our feeds, and memorizing random data points automatically makes us wise. But the author draws a really hard line between the two. The text begins by stating that fame and business opportunities are limitless, and learning itself is infinite. But then it offers this fantastic analogy. It says, just as steel becomes harder when you increase its carbon content, people become wiser with the actual growth of wisdom, not just the mere accumulation of facts. So, how exactly does the text separate the two?
Well, the text defines the separation beautifully using a nature metaphor. On one side, we have knowledge. According to the author, knowledge is merely acquired. It's just something you pick up along the way, a summary of past experiences. Honestly, it's a bit like us hoarding facts the way squirrels hoard twigs. The author compares this kind of knowledge to the branches and the leaves of a tree. It's necessary, sure, it is the framework. But wisdom? Wisdom, on the other hand, isn't just picked up, it is actively cultivated. It's the product of deep thought. If knowledge is the branches of the tree, wisdom is the fragrant flowers and the abundant fruits. It's the beautiful, nourishing result that only comes from actively cultivating all of that structural framework.
And to prove that this fruit isn't just some abstract spiritual concept, the text points directly to human history, showing that wisdom totally transcends eras, disciplines, and even empires. The author points to four incredibly distinct historical figures to make this case. First, we see the Buddha all the way back in the 5th century BCE, who the text says remains immortal through his wisdom. Then we jump forward to Archimedes in the 3rd century BCE, who used his wisdom to repeatedly thwart the massive Roman army. Next is Jesus in the 1st century CE, who the author states shines with a divine halo because of his profound wisdom. And finally, jumping all the way to the 20th century, we have Bill Gates, who used his wisdom to usher humanity into the networking age. The author is really showing us here that wisdom is the ultimate common denominator of world-changing impact, whether that impact is spiritual, military, or technological.
Okay, so that brings us to a major pivot in the text. If wisdom is the ultimate force that shapes history, how should we prioritize it in our own lives today? Well, the text lays down a bold, really challenging claim. Seeking wealth is not as valuable as seeking wisdom. The author takes our everyday, thoroughly human hustle for material things and pits it directly against the pursuit of spiritual and intellectual enlightenment. It really forces us to just pause and evaluate what we are actually chasing on a daily basis.
So why exactly is wisdom considered so superior to wealth? The text argues that wealth is fundamentally lifeless. When a person dies, their wealth simply disperses. It flows away to other places, completely out of their control. Furthermore, wealth is highly vulnerable. It can be stolen, it can be lost in a bad market, or robbed literally at any moment. Wisdom, on the other hand, is described as fundamentally alive. The text asserts that wisdom actually shines even more brightly upon a person's death, leaving a powerful, lasting legacy that outlives the physical body. And most importantly, it cannot be stolen. It always accompanies its owner, constantly illuminating their life from within.
But if wisdom is this living force, and we obviously can't just buy it like wealth, how do we actually get it? The author explains that wisdom is boundless and inexhaustible. It's not a finite resource that gets depleted the more you use it. Instead, it's accessed through very specific, intentional practices. The text states that by engaging in deep thought and diligent research, wisdom emerges from all the phenomena around us. Furthermore, through continuous meditation and reflection, the author believes wisdom can arise at absolutely any time and in any place. You don't have to be an isolated monk on a mountain. You just have to be willing to look deeply at the world.
And I have to say, the language the author uses to describe this is incredibly striking. The text says that wisdom can transform decay into magic. It can give wings to thought and act as the rainbow spanning time and space. And then it delivers these gorgeous metaphors. It is the warm sun in winter, the cool breeze in summer, the oasis in the desert, the torch rising in the darkness. The author clearly wants the reader to truly feel the comforting, life-saving, and boundless nature of wisdom. It's framed as the ultimate relief and the ultimate guide, no matter how harsh or dark your environment might get.
But hold on, there's a fascinating caveat here. As beautiful and comforting as wisdom is, it has a dual nature. It is a neutral lever of extreme power. Wisdom is a symbol of strength, but it can be both the fierce storm and the bright spring sun. It can be the devil's weapon and the angel's arm. It's the olive branch that brings much-needed peace, but it is also the smoke of war in times of chaos. The author is making it exceptionally clear that wisdom itself is a raw, immense power. It amplifies whatever intent lies behind it. It doesn't inherently choose a side.
Because of that immense power, the text draws a very specific ethical dividing line. How do we ensure wisdom is used for good? The author posits that wisdom that benefits humanity originates from a place of deep reverence, specifically reverence for the greatest creator, reverence for life, and reverence for nature. Conversely, wisdom that harms humanity stems from dark internal sources, selfishness, greed, and lawlessness. Impartially speaking, this is the core moral framework the author applies to this immense power. True, lasting benefit only comes from a posture of reverence and respect for the natural and spiritual order of the universe. This ethical and spiritual framework directly impacts our internal state too. Imagine a mind without wisdom. The author describes it as a barren desert, or the Gobi, pale, desolate, incomprehensible, and totally poor. People operating without it are drifting and totally unstable. But a mind with wisdom? It transforms into a vibrant, beautiful landscape. It is full of splendor. The text actually says nature is captivating because of its ever-changing phenomena, but people are admirable specifically because of their rich wisdom. It is what makes human beings broad-minded, truly great, and full of a promising future.
Now, to fully grasp this text, we really have to look at its theological core. The author explicitly states where this profound, landscape-altering wisdom actually originates. According to the text, the ultimate source of all wisdom is the greatest creator. The author posits that it is only by actively following the way of the greatest creator that a person can cultivate this boundless wisdom we've been discussing. Xuefeng uses this specific spiritual foundation to anchor all of the philosophical concepts we've explored so far.
So why was this foreword and the subsequent chapter of wisdom written in the first place? Well, the text outlines specific spiritual instructions and goals for a group of followers it refers to as Chanyuan celestials. The author states this text is meant to be just a small wave on the ocean of wisdom to inspire their thinking. The goals laid out are highly poetic: to guide everyone into the magnificent palace of wisdom, to help them appreciate the vast gentleness of the ocean of wisdom, to climb toward the highest realm of life under the light of wisdom, and, beautifully, to gather pearls of happiness along the way. I mean, what a striking visual that is.
And all of this climbing, all of this careful gathering of wisdom and happiness leads to a very specific cosmic conclusion. The author concludes this thematic ascent by describing the ultimate destination for the followers. The goal of this profound spiritual journey, under the constant illumination of wisdom, is to extend their eternal lives to what the text calls the celestial islands continent of the Elysium world. This is the ultimate, final peak of existence presented in Xuefeng's material, a realm of pure, unending reward for a life dedicated to true cultivation.
Wow, we have covered an incredible amount of philosophical and spiritual ground today, from the fundamental differences between the branches of knowledge and the fruits of wisdom, all the way to the ultimate destination of the Elysium world. So I want to leave you with this final thought-provoking question to reflect on. In your own life, are you merely acquiring knowledge? Are you just gathering branches and leaves? Or are you taking the time, through deep thought and reflection, to cultivate the living, breathing wisdom required for your own ultimate journey? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep reflecting, keep cultivating, and I'll see you next time.